Assalamu alaikum. Am I audible to you?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Thank you, ji. Thank you, ji. Jeete rahe. Assalamu alaikum and very good afternoon to all of you. Rather, it's good noon still. I have a good day, all of you. I'm sure all of you are okay by this time. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are going to discuss uh, essay writing, and in essay writing, we are going to discuss what is narrative writing, right? And what is a narrative writing? What are some of the types of narrative writing, and how a narrative piece of writing is different from a moral story? These are the things that we shall be discussing in our today's session. So let's direct jump to it before further delaying. Right, ample time has been given to people to be here, to be the part of the class. So first of all, what is a narrative writing? Right. Then elements of narrative writing, types of narrative writing, and then difference between a moral story and narrative writing. Right. These are the things that we shall be discussing in our today's session. Ladies and gentlemen, my very dear students, as we have already discussed what is descriptive writing, and in descriptive writing we have discussed this thing. This descriptive writing also discusses events and incidents, right? We call that particular descriptive a narrative descriptive. So narrative writing is a type of writing that connects ideas, concepts, events together in the form of a story, right? So narrative writing, it is the picture, word picture presentation of an event or an incident, right? In the past, in the present, and in the future as well. We cannot confine it to the past, and we cannot at the same time confine it to the present and the future, right? It can be in any time, right? In case of linear and non-linear narratives. So what is a narrative? A narrative is a story that connects ideas, concepts, events together, right? Let's have its a definition. First of all, a narrative piece of writing connects events, showing their patterns, relating to each other, to a specific idea. Specific idea means that a title or the topic: road accident, house on fire, a cricket match, an unforgettable journey, a picnic we had, right? Like this. And obviously, at the same time, when these specific ideas are in relation to each other and they are as well connected, right? Definitely, they have got some concepts and themes at the same time. It is a practice and art in that when we tell a story, we shape the narrative, the connection between events. So, in the second definition, at the same time states it's an art of storytelling with some shaped events, right, in the form of a narrative that has a connection, right, how the things happen. So the next thing is, a narrative is a story that involves the shaping of events around an overarching set of aims or events, right? Whether consciously or unconsciously. For example, the ultimate outcome of a comedic narrative is to shock or is to surprise the reader. That eventually leads the readers or audience to be amused. This is this is the conclusive archic aims that every narrative piece of writing has got. For example, in case of a house on fire, a road or accident, There may be horror, there may be fear as an arcing aim that the writer wants to achieve. Or in case of a cricket match where your team wins, right, you have got uh, good memories, right? A peaceful sort of memories, cherishing memories, are and applauding arctic aims that you have achieved through that cricket match. So, according to the Oxford Dictionary, right, it states about or on a narrative. The practice or art of telling story is called a narrative. All right. The second definition is the representation of a particular situation or process in such a way as to reflect or conform to an overarching set of aims and values is called a narrative piece of writing. So, from all this discussion, we gather this thing. Well, a narrative is a story, right? And that story is written most of the time in simple past tense. And at the same time, all those narrative writings, we do not use them other than the academic reasons. And in academics, we also use them very sparingly. So most of the narratives, they are written in simple past tense, you call past indefinite tense. And the pronouns we use is most of the time I and we, sometimes he, and but we never use second person you as a narrative, as a pronoun him. Narrative writing. Then at the same time, there are certain elements of a narrative piece of writing, right? The first one is a story or a plot, right? Around which the things or the fabric of the story is woven or knit. Then the second element of the narrative is setting. Setting is the combination of two things: time and place. Time and place, right? For example, yesterday it was 10 a.m. when I left my home for Lahore. When? Yesterday at 10 a.m. From where? When I left my home for Lahore. So, setting is also another element of a narrative writing. The third element of a good narrative writing is characters, right? There are three types of characters that are found in a narrative writing. First, we call them central or main characters, right? Central or main characters are those characters without which you cannot have the story. Without which you cannot have the story, right? These are the characters around which the story is woven. Then the second type of character is in a narrative is the hero of the story. That hero may be a person, that hero may be some characteristics, that hero may be anything, right? But it is the protagonist of the story. Then the third type of character is the antagonist of the story. Is the antagonist of the story, right? Antagonist is a character, right? That may be in the form of a person, that may be in the form of circumstances, predicaments, difficulties, hardships, time, etc. Right? It is always anti to the hero. It is always anti to the hero, right? Apart from the story or the plot or setting characters, right, the next element of narrative writing the conflict is the conflict in the story, right? That is the crux, that is the essence of narrative writing, without which you cannot have any narrative, right? If there is no conflict, you are not going to have any kind of narrative. And then we have got the next element, that is the rise of action or the climax of the story. After the climax, we have got the resolve or the conclusion of the story. These were the elements of narrative writing. First, I told you the plot or the story. Second is the setting, which is the combination of two things. Then character, which are of three type: main character, then hero, then anti-hero or antagonist, right? Then conflict, then rise or the climax of the story, then the resolve of story. These are the elements of a good narrative writing, which should be there for a wonderful storytelling in the form of a connected series of events. Then we have got the types of narrative writing. The first type of narrative writing is descriptive narrative writing. In the descriptive narrative writing, the writer narrates the things descriptively, where he uses the word pictures, and with the help of word pictures, imagery, right, he presents ideas, right, in a connected form, right, that may have a sense of time and place, that may have a sense of time and place. For example, watching a cricket match, what are the activities of the players and of the spectators or onlookers, right? How you are going to paint all that picture, it falls in descriptive narrative writing. So imagery are the connected ideas with the help of words in the form of time and place is called descriptive narrative, right? Its purpose is to create a sense of setting, time, and place, to convey the mode and tone of set time and place, right? That tone can be threatening, peaceful, cheerful, the way I told you, in the form of a picnic, in the form of an unforgettable journey, in the form of a cricket match, or chaotic in the form of a road accident or a house on fire, or even if it is World War II, or even when you describe the horror that is created by the pandemic COVID-19. Then the example of descriptive narrative, right? The wonderful example of descriptive narrative is the Colombian author Gabriel Garcia Marquez is the master of this type of narration. For example, in Love in the Times of Cholera, 1985 essay, his work, the third person narrator describes the unnamed seaside city in the Caribbean where much of the novel takes place. Marquez narrates the passage through the eyes of Dr. Arvino, one of the city's most distinguished doctors. So, descriptive narrative is the first type of narrative that describes scene with the help of word pictures regarding the time and the place. Then we have got next type of narrative, which we call viewpoint narrative. Point of view narrative, right? And this type of narrative, viewpoint of narrative, right, uh, tells us about the feelings of the character from the viewpoint of narrator. Narrator here shares with us the feelings of character, and it is at the same time a key element of a narrative. The purpose of viewpoint narrative, the purpose of viewpoint narrative, right? It presents the scenes or events to us so that we see, understand them through narrator's feelings, desires, beliefs, and values, right? So we see them through, right? Narrator, the person who is telling us the story, through his feelings, through his desires, through his beliefs, through his values, right? For example, let's take an example from the historical narrative, right? What was the war that we had in 1857 in the subcontinent? Can you name the war? Hello? Yes, war of. I am not concerned with the history here. I am only concerned with the writer's feelings, beliefs, emotions, right? From your side, it was war of independence, right? From the people of subcontinent's viewpoint, it was a war of independence that was failed, and it was fought on 1857. And from the viewpoint of an Englishman, a Britisher, it was a rebellion. और अगर उर्दू में इसको इस्तेमाल करें तो आप कहेंगे जी बगावत, right? Did you see the words, right? Bagawat. Did you get my point or not?
Yes, sir.
Right? So in viewpoint narrative, the writer narrates the things, events, incidents from his own point of view with respect to a particular character, right? Then we have got a wonderful writer, James Joyce and Virginia Woolf, right? They present multifaceted characters in a narration on the same page. And when the character is telling, right, or the narrator is telling characters, right, particulars, the reader is transported at the same place. We call this type of narrative at the same time stream of consciousness. Stream of consciousness. James Joyce was the first person to write this type of narratives. And second one was Virginia Woolf, who made this thing wonderful, and she picked this genre to the maximum height. So the second type of narrative is viewpoint narrative, right? And we at the same time call it stream of consciousness. Then the third type of narrative we have got, right, is the historical narrative, right? Historical narrative has got the elements of biography, autobiography, right? And various historical subgenres, right? That may be World War II, that may be World War One, or that may be any war or any character over the history and development of the character, keeping in view the autobiographical elements of or biographical elements of that particular character. This type of narrative even exists in English literature in the form of plays as well, right? For example, William Shakespeare has written plays on Richard II, on Hamlet, right? On Othello, right? These are the characters and persons, right? In the history, right? He has shown their development in the form of play, right? And even right, this type of fiction is existed in the English literature, and then Urdu literature as well is rich with this type of narrative, right? The famous novels of Anayatullah and Nasim Hijazi, Yusuf bin Tashafin, right? Muhammad bin Qasim, right? So all this type of narratives have got the biographical or the autobiographical elements in the form of a story on some event, incident, or character. But at the same time, these characters show, these narratives show the development of the character or the story with respect to a particular character. Then the purpose of historical narrative. One thing common to historical narrative in different genres, it shows historical process along with the biographical or autobiographical elements. It links the causation of events from event to event, showing chain reactions to lead how the things pan out or how the things happen. The purpose of historical narrative. So this is why historical narratives such as the narration sharing a character's backstory. We often have words showing order or events, such as the words bolded in this example. For example, first in the city was a fledgling train. It in the early days there was one of the traffic light, and if you were doing your driver's license, you could be deemed to show you would have to drive it fast. In later years, as the local publishing industry grew, it became a hotbed of hot shot journalists in training. So the city needed more traffic lights to write about our real events at least. Then, example of historical narrative. Arundhati Roy's novel The God of Small Things, 1997, about tragedies that strike twin siblings born in Am- Amanam in India and their family, is full of rich historical narration. Roy reveals the unusual individualistic nature of one twin, Rahil, by telling the reader Rahil's schooling background. Right? So the development of or the backstory of a character or even from the historical perspective, having biographical or autobiographical elements is called historical narrative. The, the way you can see in the example given by the God of Small Things. Then we have got the fourth type of narrative writing, that is linear narrative writing. In case of linear narrative writing, right, we have got a cause and effect, first of all. Then this cause and effect thing is connected with different events and incidents, right? And these events and incidents along with the cause and effect thing, right, can be there in the past, can be there in the present, or even it can be present in the future, right? So what is a linear narrative? Linear narrative is the narration of events or incidents connected equally with cause and effect, right? And then these events can be seen where in the past, in the present, and even in the future, right? So this is why we call it linear narrative. Example of linear narrative: David Mitchell's genre Bending Clouds Atlas 2004 spans multiple eras, setting and characters, and is non-linear as a whole. Yet one of the sections of his book titled Half Lives, the first Lusa Ray mystery, is written as a mystery thriller. This section in itself is linear narrative told in the present tense. Told in the present tense. Then we have got the final type, the fifth type of narrative writings, narrative essays, that is non-linear narratives, right? Different types of narrative include a narration that does not follow event in the order they happen, right? So in case of non-linear narrative, we have got one thing that is very distinctive, and it becomes distinctive because the writer, the narrator, presents the things in chronological order, right? What happens in the case of the rest of all narratives? Things are described the way they happen. Things are narrated the way they happen with some conditions. But in case of non-linear narrative, right, things are narrated, right, chronologically, right? For example, 1990, then year 1991, right? The author might share key details from 91 before going back to the events of 1990 in the story. The purpose of non-linear narrative, right? Non-linear narrative has various uses. It can present the narrator's emotional state or consciousness. It can show stories with related arcs or themes unfolding at different places and times, right? It can build suspense. So suspense is the hallmark of it. Example of non-linear narrative. Donatar's prologue to The Secret History, 1992, is a masterful piece of non-linear narration. Within the first page, we know there has been a murder, and the first person narrator is somehow complicit. Tar's opening paragraph reveals a lot, but still builds anticipation. Then the last chunk that is there, the last chunk is what is the difference between a narrative and a moral story? So can you tell me, guys, hello there, can you tell me what is the difference between a narrative and a moral story? Hello.
सर नैरेटिव में हम जस्ट एक कोई इंसिडेंट या कोई वाक्य बयान कर रहे होते हैं जिस टाइप के अकॉर्डिंग, और जो मॉरल स्टोरी होती है उसके एंड में कोई उसका कोई हम मतलब मोरालिटी से रिलेटेड कोई कंक्लूजन करेंगे उसका.
Because this thing has been already elaborated with overarching aims. Both moral story and narrative has got an overarching aim. For example, in case of a moral story, we have got a moral, and in case of a narrative writing, we have got feelings, right? We have got feelings. So it doesn't make a difference. What is the difference there? Or in simpler words, both of them, narrative and moral story, they leave us on a lesson, right? And in case of a narrative, we call them overarching aims, and in case of a moral story, we call it a moral lesson. Any other? Short and long differences, it is not clear statement. Someone must be saying it. I wonder when I start asking you questions, you people start fleeing the class. Soon it was 61 people and now it is 54. It is quite surprising and shocking to me. Well, ladies and gentlemen, now listen me so that I can wind up the things. In case of a narrative writing, a narrator is always there who shares his own story or the story of someone else that he has seen, he has eyewitnessed, he has observed, he has experienced. While in case of a moral story, it is never a personal experience, it is never an I experienced, eyewitness experience, or it is never that we have seen it somewhere, right? We do not know whose story is this. For example, let's take the example of a farmer and his quarreling son. Once there was a farmer who lived in a village. We do not know who was the farmer, what was the village, what was the time, and whose story is this, right? So this is the key difference in a moral story and a narrative. So let me sum up the entire thing. My very dear students, both narratives and moral stories are stories, but they are different on the grounds of personal experience, observation, and being eyewitness stories. We, in our today's session, we tried to discuss what is a narrative. Narrative is art of storytelling. Then we also discussed it is written in simple past tense, and I, we, and he as pronouns are used. Then I told you the elements of narrative writing, right? Like plot, like setting, like characters, like conflict, like climax of the story, then the resolve of the story. Then I also discussed with you the types, their purpose, and their examples of narrative writing. First of all, we discuss the descriptive narrative, then the viewpoint narrative we call stream of consciousness, then historical narrative that has got autobiographical or biographical elements of the characters. Then we discuss the linear narratives, right? That is the combination of narrative, and at the same time it can be presented in the past, present, and future. Then we also discuss the non-linear narrative, right? These are the five types of narrative writing. That was all from my side. Inshallah, we'll see you people tomorrow with the argumentative essay writing. Okay? Take wonderful care of yourselves. And bye bye for now. Inshallah, we'll see you tomorrow with our new lecture. CRs are requested to send me the picture of attendance after sorting it out. Take the picture of overall attendance, sort out your class, and send me the attendance of your class.
सर अभी
Because
जो छोड़ गए हैं उनकी अटेंडेंस स्किप कर दो ना.
skip kar do, no problem. Skip
ओके
kar do, right? Because the three classes are attending the session and only 61 people were there. Micro modeling was there. Uh, environmental sciences are there. They make for 80 students, and at the same time 18 students from logical sciences are also there. So it makes 100 plus students, are around about 100 students, but unfortunately only 61 attended it. So it must be taken care of. Thank you very much. All
ओके
take care.
सर.
Allah.
ईएस वाले एक दफा दोबारा लगा दे अटेंडेंस चैट बॉक्स में अपनी काइंडली.
Sean, are you there? Sean is requested to share the link of the class. Communicate my message to Sean. Thank you very much, Sean.